first and foremost, I need to thank you, your leadership, for having me. September is Realtor Safety Month. And this, of course, is my busiest month of the year. And I want to make sure that safety is on the agenda year-round. So I am happy to be here. And I know I've worked with you all before. So again, thank you. And what a lot of real estate agents don't realize is that in my business, and I'm a former real estate agent, and I have been teaching safety for over 30 years. Nationally, I've even created content for the Canadian Real Estate Association. And what a lot of agents don't realize is that a lot of associations don't necessarily put safety on the agenda like you all do. So I want to make sure they recognize that there was no arm twisting to be here, is what I'm trying to say. And some associations, I'm begging and pleading. So you all have said we want our agents to have safety training, and then I'm going to explain in a little bit why that is so important. So thank you for allowing me to be here. So the question is, why am I here? The National Association of Realtors has mandated as a core standard that every association and board must offer some kind of real estate safety training. And that has been, I want to say that core standard has been in place maybe about 10 or so years. And again, some associations are better at compliance than others. And I really want to thank your association for being one of those associations. I like to start with stories. And as you'll note, we're going to be together for 90 minutes. I'm going to tell a lot of stories. And then we also talk about lessons learned. Does anyone know the Beverly Carter story enough to share that? Who can unmute and tell us a little bit about what happened in the Beverly Carter situation? Anyone? And today I'm asking questions, and I'm in a Zoom with salespeople, so I know you guys are not shy, so I want you to jump in. Anyone comfortable enough to share this? And Jamie, we're recording, right?
Yes.
Perfect. Anyone comfortable enough to share?
Doesn't look like it.
Okay, so let me do it, but I'm still going to have questions, so you guys are safe for now. Beverly Carter was a real estate agent in Arkansas. She got a phone call to show a client, a cash buyer, a house. And I'm a former agent. You all are agents, and you know what we do when we hear cash buyer, right? We immediately make that appointment. So Beverly made the appointment, but after she made the appointment, there was some hesitation on her part. Something just didn't feel right. So the question is, how do I know? I had the opportunity to interview her office mate. Now, I'm also a writer for the National Association of Realtors Realtor magazine, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. I had an opportunity to interview her. She said after Beverly set the appointment with the buyer, that something didn't feel right. She didn't want to meet him alone. So what she did is she called back and she said, look, I'm just not comfortable meeting you alone. He said, don't worry. My wife will be there as well. So at that point, that was a little more comfortable for her. She went to the property and it was just him. He said, hey, don't worry. My wife had to work today. We're going to put her up on FaceTime and she will walk through the property with us that way. Those, unfortunately, were the last images on Beverly's phone. What happened is their plan was to kidnap Beverly and hold her for ransom. That did not work out, and they ended up murdering her on September 25th. So that's just a recent observation. That's something that just recently happened. I have been honored to get an award from the Beverly Carter Foundation. I don't know if you can see it clearly here. And I know you all have more than likely talked to Coral Carter, her son, who is passionate about real estate safety. So this is a story that resonates for so many reasons. I don't tell stories to blame the victims. That will never happen. But what I do is I talk lessons learned. What can we learn from this story that will keep other agents from being victimized? Can anyone here tell me something, a lesson learned from that story that you can learn and not do today? Anyone? Excuse me. Are you guys going to make me have to work for this today? Okay, so everyone's quiet now. So what has one lesson learned is when you meet a client that you don't know, right? I want to say that the NAR settlement took care of that problem. Right now, you have to have a buyer agency agreement before you show a client. And that involves steps that I've been talking about for years. Other safety experts have been talking about for years. have your new clients come into the office first. So that way, we used to call it CITO, CITO, come into the office. That way, it increases witness potential and you get an opportunity to talk to them, find out if they're truly qualified for the dollar amount of houses that they want to see. That was a good business decision so that you were not wasting time. And so now the buyer agency agreement is doing the exact same thing, except now you don't have a choice. You simply must have them sign this agreement in advance. What I'm going to talk about today, and you're going to notice a theme. I am always talking business building with safety. I don't just say you must do this to be safe, you must do that. You would not hear that. I am saying here's how to build your business using safety. That's protecting the consumer. So in this situation, being able to meet with the buyer upfront and get them to sign the buyer agency agreement also opens the door for you to schedule a buyer safety consultation. And you know, when this whole agreement, the settlement took place, I get to speak across the country. So in some states, they were already doing the buyer agency agreement up front. So it was just business as normal. In other states, agents' hair was on fire because now, oh my gosh, we have to get the buyer into our office first. They're not going to like that. How do I get them to do it? I am saying lead with safety. Tell the buyer that we're going to have to meet first before I can show you that house. Let's meet first. I need to have a buyer safety consultation, and then we'll talk about how we're going to work together. The buyer safety consultation includes telling you how to not be victimized. There are wire frauds, and that wire fraud business is growing. My job is to tell you as the buyer what to watch out for so that you are not the victim of wire fraud. You're going to get emails more than likely saying we're changing the wire instructions. I need to tell you that those are typically false, and here's what you need to watch out for. So you're having a whole conversation with them about how to be safe during the real estate transaction. Think about that conversation when you say we need to get together up front before I can show you the house and let me tell you how to be safe. No one's going to object to that. And then, by the way, here are the things you need to watch out for. Here's what I am doing to keep you safety. And by the way, here's how we're going to work together. And that's when you produce the agreement. So without a doubt, that is going to make it easier for you to be able to get that buyer to the table, to sign the agreement, and to counsel them. So in the Beverly Carter situation, before meeting a complete stranger at an empty property, you're going to meet them up front. And I hope that makes sense to everybody, but that is one way that you can add value to the relationship. And I know you guys have been hearing add value, show your value ever since the settlement. That's way number one, and we're just getting started. So the lesson learned in the Beverly Carter case is to meet someone up front in order to vet them. And then if you do some kind of a background check, you have an opportunity to do that before you meet with them. So there's so many things in place. My goal in sharing stories is that the stories do not repeat. Unfortunately, in the Beverly Carter situation, her family sued the real estate brokerage, saying if there was some kind of safety training in place, we believe Beverly would be here today. The lawsuit ended up getting dismissed because of the statute of limitations, so we don't know what would have happened. So whenever an association or board or even a brokerage says, let's get safety training on the books, then that's reducing your liability exponentially. And I have to say this, during that time, the Beverly Carter situation, I got a phone call from an attorney who said, hey, I'm representing clients, did not say the name of the client. And I'm just trying to find out if safety training is required in the real estate industry. We're trying to decide this client was injured, they didn't go into detail, and we're just trying to decide pretty much who to sue. And I could not participate in the conversation. This is my industry. But the bottom line is there are no requirements for the most part. So the lesson learned is thank you for having safety training today. It may very well not only save a life, but prevent someone from being victimized. We're going to touch upon cybersecurity a little bit, but the premise today is safe work practices. But I would be remiss to not touch upon cybersecurity since we have enough time. I usually run out of time. The same thing that happened to Beverly Carter happened about 6 years later to Monique Bow, a real estate agent in Minnesota. Exact same situation. She got a phone call from a buyer. She showed up at a property. She was kidnapped and later murdered. My job is to show you these stories, share the stories with you so that they never happen again. Again, the buyer agency agreement signature will eliminate a majority of these crimes. So that is a solution that was not the intended solution, but that is a solution that has a safety implication, and I am happy for that. A lot of times agents ask, Tracey, how are we supposed to know these stories? We've never heard of Monique Bao. We don't hear the other stories that are happening. How do we learn? And I had to create a group on Facebook. It's called the Safety and Security Source for Real Estate. That is where I talk about all things safety and safe culture and cybersecurity related in the real estate world. I'm going to give you a link at the end in order to join the group. That's where you can see what's going on. And I'm going to sneeze again, Jamie. Nightmare. For some reason, I woke up. I'm here in Kansas City, Missouri, and I don't know if it's that season, the allergy season, but we may get a few sneezes today. So forgive me in advance. So again, one thing that I have learned is that associations and brokerages don't typically have time or they don't put safety on the agenda. I had an education director say to me, she said, Tracey, your information is great. I've seen you speak. You could save lives. It's good what you do, but it's not a good business investment for us. How is safety not a good business investment? What she said is our agents will not show up for any kind of training unless you teach them how to make more money. True? Yeah. And I get mixed reaction, maybe so, maybe not, right? But the bottom line is that's why I build everything in every training. I'm telling you how to increase your bottom line using safety. I created the country's only real estate safety designation, the Consumer Safety and Security Specialist, where it's 2-3 hour CE classes in the morning. I'm talking safe practices. In the afternoon, I'm talking technology and cybersecurity. So a full day earns you that designation. And I want to say about 700-800 agents have earned it. So what I'm doing today, I only have 90 minutes with you. I'm going to talk fast, and then I'm going to give you the highlights of that program so that you walk away with actionable safe practices and you walk away knowing what the real life dangers are, not some theory. So that's what we're doing today. After the Beverly Carter situation, after her family sued the brokers, I had to put my thinking cap on again. It's like, how do I help brokers, managers, and owners not get sued successfully? So that's when I started a safety certification for brokerages. And I'm saying, here's what you need to do to set up a safe office, from the physical crime prevention part of the office to inventory, to getting, the most importantly, safe practices in place for your agents. How do we weave that into your business as so that you reduce your risk and you keep your agents happy, you retain them, recruit them, and then you also don't have to worry about something happening and getting sued and saying, oops, we didn't do anything. So necessity has caused me to create a lot of programs. I have about 12 or 13. I was selected by the National Association of Realtors to host the country's only safety podcast, real estate safety podcast, and I won an award for doing so. I get an opportunity to write for Realtor magazine as well as Inman, so I have a big platform, and I am passionate about what I do, so I am so happy to be here. The podcast, we have episodes on almost any topic. This one's property management. You can see I have my twin sister. She's a real estate agent, so she was on the podcast, and we're going to talk a little bit about all the different topics that are on the podcast, so you can binge watch this weekend. So it's a podcast where we talk about all different topics. One thing I've also done is I've created my own podcast where I get to talk to agents. When I see a story, I can call them up and say, let's get on, and we can do it quickly. So I will make sure you get that information. And also I started Real Estate Safety University for those smaller brokerages who say, we can't afford to bring you in, Tracey. And I said, okay, here's a way we can do it on an affordable basis. Every quarter, I'm coming to you with a live virtual. So I'll talk about that a little bit later. Here's my next question. Let's see if everyone's awake and if people are going to participate now. Who can tell me a top risk of being a real estate agent? Just name one thing. If you can unmute, name one thing that you worry about every day. And if you don't worry about it, that your family worries about for you. Anyone going to unmute for me today? Is that still a no? Okay, now I see that there's something in the chat. I can't read it. Okay, so you guys are going to make me talk for the whole 90 minutes, but that's okay. If you don't mind hearing my voice, I do not mind talking. Okay, your
Tracey, someone
job.
said open houses.
Okay, thank you. Open houses, definitely. So if you take a look here, you make a living meeting strangers in empty houses and sitting in empty houses waiting for strangers to come in. We call those open houses, right? You also make a living going to strangers' houses. You go inside, you close, and you lock the door behind you. How does that sound? Kind of dangerous, right? Again, my job is not to scare you, but to give you the tools to do these in a safe manner. Have you heard that the U.S. Department of Labor considers real estate sales and leasing a high-risk hazardous occupation? If you think about your job description, is that a surprise? There's no other job description that I can think of that matches yours dealing with strangers in empty places. Based on that, we're going to talk today about ways to eliminate some of that. And we've talked about how meeting a complete stranger, we've gotten that one off the table. We have a solution for that one with the safety consultation and the buyer agency agreement, right? Again, one thing that I love, and I find that the more stories I tell, the more real estate agents can relate to what I am saying. A lot of times I get to speak from big cities to small towns everywhere. And a lot of times people think, oh, that doesn't happen here, or we don't do that here. And I only work in the safe part of town. And when you see the real life stories where these crimes are happening, then that's the wake up call that says, it can happen anywhere. So regardless of where I live, I need to pay attention. So that is the purpose of today's program, to let you know it is happening everywhere and to give you the tools to not have to worry about that. Again, I'm building the safety protocols, I'm building that into what we talk about today. So every time you hear me say, here's how you build your business, understand what I am doing. And I just got back from Charlotte. And then I had an agent, she said, you sure talk about money a lot. You sure talk about ways to make money a lot. She said, I like it, but where does that come from? And that's when I said that agents truly, being in the commission business, and again, I've been there, the agents want to know how to build their business, how to stand out from the other 1.4 million realtors and the other 1.5 million real estate professionals. So you have a lot of competition. And my goal is to help you distinguish yourself by being the agent who leads with safety. So that is why I'm constantly saying that. So that's what I'm doing today. So let's talk about crimes that have happened since Beverly Carter, and I'm going to focus on some of the recent ones. In July of this year, there was a real estate agent hosting an open house, and she unfortunately was sexually assaulted. The guy came in and he had a weapon. He pulled a weapon and he demanded that the agent strip, and he sexually assaulted her. He took her keys, so he stole her car. That agent survived, and he was apprehended. So she did what she needed to do in order to survive. And a lot of times we hear these stories and you think the bad guy never gets caught. If you know what to do and you know the steps to take, then you will survive. In June of this year, another story, this agent was showing property. He was opening the door of a property and a guy approaches him and he physically assaults him. He says, we're going to write a contract on this house. And it was a fraudulent contract. He didn't really hadn't checked the boxes yet. It just so happens in this case, the real estate agent lived across the street. He said, we're going to your house across the street and you're going to write this. And he had a knife point. He physically assaulted him. So this agent, although bloodied and bruised, was able to get to law enforcement. He did the right thing. He survived, and his perpetrator was arrested. And these are happening in towns that you don't think it would happen in. So I tell you that to say, this is happening everywhere. So what is the story in both? What is the lesson to be learned in both of these stories? And it's easy to say, never show alone. And I have, again, been an agent, and I know it's not always possible to get someone to accompany you. So when you have an open house, you're going. When you have a showing, you're going. Again, the buyer agreement has taken some of the concern off of the showing new buyers. But in this situation, one was an open house and one he was opening the door in an agent approach. So the point is learning how to get out of those situations. If you have someone with you, that is ideal. Does anyone here absolutely 100% refuse to do an open house? And if so, can you share why? Anyone refuse to do an open house? Okay, so what about someone who does open houses? What do you do during your open house to keep you safe if you are an agent who sees the value of doing an open house? And we by now know that open houses are not necessarily to sell the house that you are holding open, right? It's a business development tool. Anyone unmute and tell us, or even write in comments or the chat. Anyone do open houses and have a certain step that you take to keep you safe during the open house?
This is Michael.
Michael.
Yeah, I do open houses. I'm actually even a broker, but I actually, I hate to say it in an open forum, but I do carry. I have concealed licensing because I was almost attacked twice in my 20 something years, and I don't
Oh
take
no.
those risks.
Do you feel comfortable sharing either of those stories or?
Um, Once was in a duplex neighborhood, which was in lower income, and three gentlemen, I'll call them that loosely, were walking down the street and flipped out knives while I was taking a lockbox off of some duplexes that I had listed, and I narrowly got away in my car. And another one was out east in the Mayaca, past Panther Ridge area on a large acreage home, and somebody wanted to see it, and they just had a very crazy look on their face and tried to trap me in a couple of different rooms. Fortunately, I had a um, actually brother-in-law who lived close by and texted him, and he came by, and then the guy took off.
Oh, good for you. So witness potential. Oh, thank you so much for sharing those stories. And another reason, Michael, why it was important for you to share those stories is typically when I do these classes, is always the female agents. And for a long, long time, um, male agents always thought that this was a crime against female agents. So we don't need to worry about staying safe. We'll accompany the female agents if they need help. So thank you for speaking up and showing that male agents need to pay attention to their safety as well.
You're
Okay, so
welcome.
you said that you do host open houses. Tell me again, what do you do to make those open houses safe?
Well, I have a concealed permit, so I carry
Ah,
in a concealed manner, so I feel safer having taken the courses and whatnot. So, um, but I don't do open houses 100% of the time. I really handpick the ones that I want to do.
okay, thank you. And that makes a lot of sense. And we are going to talk about weapons. And when the National Association of Realtors surveyed members about weapons, pepper spray actually was the number one weapon of choice, followed by firearms. And I had an opportunity to interview one of the attorneys for NAR to ask about the rules regarding carrying a weapon. And they basically punted down to your association. If there are no laws prohibiting you from carrying a weapon, perfectly fine. If your brokerage has no issue, perfectly fine. And what I am finding is no matter where I am in the country, this is becoming more common. So and Michael hit the nail on the head, training. He doesn't just have a weapon, he trains, he knows how to use it, and he is willing to use it. So that is so important in this age. I've had agents who say, female agents, I can remember clearly two of them. My husband wants me to carry a gun, but I'm so uncomfortable, and he's kind of forcing the issue. Those are people who are more likely to have the weapon taken from them and used against them because they're not comfortable with it. So they're not going to have it where they can use it. So definitely pick the weapon that you will actually use, whether it is pepper spray, whether it is a firearm, whether it is a self-defense class, or training like we're doing today, where hopefully we can prevent some of the situations and some of the crimes without you having to use a weapon other than the one that you were born with. We're going to talk about that. Here's a story that fascinated me. This broker is in she's in Florida. And I saw an article about her in Inman, where she had someone approach her office. She came into her office and she saw a guy who was a little disheveled talking to one of her people. And then she noticed something's wrong. Her instinct said, there's a problem here. The situation doesn't quite look right. So she was able to assess that there was a problem. So she assessed the threat. There was a problem. And she walked into the office and she talked to the guy, what's going on. He was disheveled, he was upset, and then he dropped something and she didn't know what it was he dropped. However, the other agent in her office recognized it as a magazine, a clip with the ammunition. So at that point, she knew that he was armed. And she somehow, some way, was able to calmly let her agents know we need to evacuate. She did a lot of this without even talking. I had an opportunity to interview her, and it is the most fascinating story of Grace under pressure and how she was able to get him out of the office and protect her agents. And I'm going to make sure you have a link to that podcast. It's from the Rip from the Headlines podcast. And that's going to actually be launching this afternoon. I want you to hear her story. But the bottom line is, she was able to look at her agents and they know her because she said something that struck me. She said, every morning I walk into my office and I talk to all of my agents. If it's just a hi, how are you doing? She said they may be sitting at their desk lead generating, but I'm going to say hi. They will see me and hear from me each day. And so based on that, they knew her. So she walks in and she's looking at her agents. There are some in a conference room training. She's able to motion, or with her eyes, somehow it's like, get out. And she was able to get them to evacuate the office without causing a disruption. Meanwhile, this guy, this armed intruder, is standing there, and he's a mess. His phone rings. It was his mother, and she said, "Is that your mom? Let me talk to her." So she grabbed the phone and talked to the mom and kind of hinted as what was going on. And then he did not want to talk anymore. And then she got to chance another call came in. It was his dad. She talked to his father. Meanwhile, in the background, her agents are debating, do we jump in and help her? And she's motioning, signaling, don't, get out, evacuate the office, everybody leave. And the office was evacuated. And then they understood we need to call 911. And another thing she said that was so important and impressive to me, she has a relationship with the police department. So her office invited the police over to do a security assessment. That is something that associations can do. That is something that brokerages can do. The police came in, they did an assessment to help crime-proof her office. Here's what you need to do regarding the windows. Here's a better lock for the door. So that is something free, and every single one of you brokers, broker owners, you can do that. Call the local police department. So she had a great relationship with them. She invited them to events, and she would stop by and see them on occasion, so they knew her. So when the 911 call came and it was her office, you can guarantee that the officers responded accordingly. And so she talked to him, and she happened to be a Keller Williams agent, and she realized that he was a veteran and possibly maybe suffering from PTSD. They have on their wall in the back a wall of honor, something along those lines, where they honor agents who are veterans. And so she showed him that wall, and that gave him some calm. And she's saying, these are our veterans. We recognize them. We respect them. So that, again, gave her a way to reach him. She was empathizing with him. She even offered him water and a seat, gave him an opportunity to use the restroom. And she didn't flee. She didn't leave. She thought it was in her best interest to control the situation. Bottom line is she ended up escorting him after looking at the wall, the honor wall, escorted him to the back door and opened it up, and the police were there to take him into custody. So this is a fascinating story about leadership, and she's had a lot of leadership training. And my question to her was, how do you know how to do that? I don't know if many of us under that situation would be able to handle it well. She did. And again, I want to make sure you hear her story. So that's another lesson learned. If you're in leadership, you need to know how to empathize. You need to know your people, and they need to know you first and foremost. This is a story that happened a few years back. A real estate agent was in an open house, and the guy came in and he was acting a little weird, but no big deal. He left. He came back in. This time he had a wrench in his hand, and he physically assaulted her. He hit her about 12 times in the face and head area, but she happened to be a black belt. So she put up a fight. So she did have injuries, but she survived. Anyone here take any self-defense classes? You can say yes or put it in the chat. Anyone here take any kind of self-defense classes or have ever taken one? Let me know. No one? Okay, when the National Association of Realtors surveyed agents during their safety survey, they found that 70% of agents have taken some kind of a class. So the important thing is if you're going to take a self-defense class, one class is not enough. One and done, not enough. You must take it on a regular basis, just like Michael said, with his weapon, he knows how to use it, he carries it, but he still attends training. So that is something that is ongoing. Take the classes on a regular basis, and then it becomes second nature to you as opposed to one class, and then you're in a dangerous situation and you're trying to remember what do I do? How do I do it? Take it on a regular basis. Okay, I again write for Realtor magazine and have written an article about another situation where an agent survived. So I'm going to point you to more Realtor magazine articles so that you can learn different ways that real agents, just like you, have survived in situations. Now, it looks like there might be a comment or so, and I can't see it. Is there anything, Jamie, that I need to know?
Just one person said that they have not yet taken the training class.
That they have or have not?
Have not yet.
Okay, okay. And again, if you take one, one's not enough. Okay, one other thing that came to my attention last year was the global real estate community. A lot of agents abroad um, were being assaulted. And I'm looking at the stories and it's like, why is no one talking about this? There were a couple of agents in Canada. One agent in Canada, her body was found in a field after she met with a group of people who she did not know, and they murdered her and they found her body. Another agent in New Zealand was door knocking. So the news is a little questionable between door knocking or showing. She was door knocking, and I don't know that her body has ever been found, but an arrest has been made. She was doing that by herself. And another agent was working, this one was again in Canada for some reason, but different parts of Canada. Another agent was working on behalf of his sellers, and he had to evict someone from a property, and he decided that the seller decided, we'll just pay them out of their lease. So take $4,200, meet them, and get them to leave. I think you know where this story is going. He met them. He was assaulted and robbed of the $4,200. And so there are lessons to be learned in each of those crimes. And then there were even more. And I said, wait, no one's talking about this. So I wrote an article for Inman about real estate safety abroad. This is happening to your counterparts across the country. Just recently with the NAR, and NAR has a great global program. And anyone here have the CIPS, the global designation? Can you either say yes or write yes in the chat? I want to know who here has the global designation. No one? Well, that is a designation that's available to real estate agents. And one thing that I have found is we talk about agents overseas. What I'm talking about, no one else is talking about it, agents overseas working and being in danger. And then agents in the US, some agents, and I had an opportunity to interview some who work overseas. So it's like there are things that they need to do to be safe. But the bigger question is, what about the agents in the United States working with international buyers? I just wrote an article for the National Association of Realtors for the global department. That's going to be published in early October. One thing I did in that article is I talked about real estate agents in the United States working with international clients, and there is a difference. So how do you stay safe if your client is traveling here from elsewhere in the world and you have to screen them? There may be an issue with the names, and if you typically do a background check, they may have an international profile that may not go through the screening process that we can use for US citizens. So that's a concern. There are other specific crimes and scams that international buyers or criminals are using, and they're targeting agents here who have no idea. So as you can tell, this is a topic that wasn't being talked about. I came in and I said, we need to have the conversations. I interviewed a couple of agents, and I don't know you all, and Brian Woods. I don't know, Jamie, you may know him. He is an instructor there in Florida. He is a CIPS instructor. I know you know him. I met him years ago. He is a wonderful resource. He is interviewed in both of these articles for his expertise. And there's another agent named Tamika Bryant who has a real estate brokerage in the Dominican Republic, and she also works in the US. So read the article, read this article. You can just Google it and watch for the article from the National Association of Realtors about global safety. And again, that is a topic that I saw that no one was talking about. And that's kind of how I built my business. If no one else is doing it and it needs to be done, just do it. And that's why I've added the business building to my safety program. So lessons abroad, that's an important topic. The theme of all of my conversations is that you need to be the agent who is leading with safety. You need to be the agent that every conversation must revolve around safety. I'm going to talk to you about when you talk to sellers, how to make that seller listing appointment about safety so that you stand out from the other 2 or 3 agents they've interviewed. You're walking in with a checklist that I created for you saying, let's talk about how to keep your house safe, your property and your family secure when it's on the market. Let's get medicine out of medicine cabinet, jewelry out of jewelry boxes. You are that agent. So you're leading with safety at the seller listing appointment. I've already talked to you about how to lead with safety when it comes to the buyer consultation. So again, you're standing out. At the end, I'm going to talk to you about FSBOs, how to convert FSBOs into listings by leading with safety. So I'm going to save that little treat for you at the end. But the bottom line is be the agent always talking about safety. Can that help you grow your business? I believe that it can. I even wrote an article about it for the close. You can search safety on the close and find the article. And I know they've made some changes. If it is not there, I am happy to share it with you, but you're pretty much going to get the essence of it today. Be the agent always talking about safety. I have to say this, 100% of every adult on the face of the earth is concerned about their personal safety, the safety of their family, and protecting their homes and their offices, their businesses. So safety is a universal topic guaranteed to resonate. So if you're the one telling that seller, yeah, there'll be tons of people walking through your house, some are strangers, but let's talk about how to make you feel safe while they're doing it and make sure your possessions are protected. And you're talking again about buying. I'm telling you, wire fraud is a big crime. It's not a matter of if, but when someone someone you work with will be the victim of wire fraud. But the thing that frustrates me the most, it's preventable. It's preventable. And that's what I'm talking to you. Everyone listening to me today, everyone who's listening to the recording, you will be able to stop a majority of these crimes, not only against yourself, but the consumer, your buyers and your sellers, simply by sharing safety information with them. That's my passion. You might be able to tell through the screen I'm rather passionate about this, and I've actually started a movement. In 2026, my goal is to make safety training mandatory for real estate agents on some level. I want it to be mandatory, and we hate the regulations and things along those lines. But if you have ethics training, which is mandatory, and there's some social media or marketing training that some brokerages make mandatory, all I want you to do is put safety on the agenda. Most of the crimes can be prevented. I talk to a lot of real estate agents, and one thing that I understand is that you all think you're pretty good judges of character, and you have to be a salesperson, right? But I want you to slow down on that. A lot of times you can look at someone and you think, I can size them up. I can look at them and tell whether or not they mean me harm or if they are good for business. I want you to pause. Here's another question. Let's say you are a real estate agent and you have maybe a luxury or an upscale property. Okay. I'm going to show you a picture of a fella who will pull up to the property and want to look at it. Now, if you are an agent who thinks that you can judge a book by its cover, you're going to have a different perception of who I'm showing you. So here is a picture. I want you all to tell me, who is this? This fellow pulls up in this truck to your property and he wants to see it. Does anyone know who this is? No, that happens to be Sam Walton, the founder of Walmart. one of the richest people in the world. That is his real truck. That is how he dresses. So if you judge this book by its cover, guess what? It's going to cost you money, right? How about this picture? I know you guys are going to know this. Unmute, jump in. Who knows who this is? Anyone? That is Ted Bundy. Is that what someone wrote in the chat, Jamie?
Yes, someone did respond with Ted Bundy.
Thank you. And that, for some reason, people know that he is a notorious serial killer. How did they describe Ted Bundy? Charming, charismatic, good looking, clean cut guy, right? So, looking at him, if you judge that book by its cover, think about how he committed his crimes. He would go to like grocery store parking lots. He would have a fake cast on or have a crutch. He would ask women, "Could you please help me?" And women would look at him. They would judge him by his appearance. He looks okay. He's a nice looking fella. How bad can this be? People who judge this book by its cover, it costs them their lives. So my message to you is gone are the days where you can judge a book by its cover. And we talk about that before AI, but with the invention of AI, or the rate AI is infiltrating not only the world but the real estate industry, this is even more important. Cyber criminals are using deep fakes, and they are tricking us. They are writing things that don't look horrible. They're not grammatically incorrect. They're not misspelled. They're perfectly grammatically correct. So there are so many concerns with the invention of AI that makes you understand that you can't believe what you see. And again, I threw in some cybersecurity topics to talk about today, although the focus of our presentation is safe practices. My job is that you make it home every night. I also want you to protect the consumer, and the AI seeing cyber criminals or taking advantage. You can no longer believe what you see. So in these situations, the question is, how do we stay safe? What can we do to tell? I want to tell you, it's just not as easy as you believe. Take a look here. Isn't she cute? She looks like she would be fun. This looks like it could be an old yearbook photo of someone you went to school with. This looks like it can be a neighbor. Every single one of those women are serial killers too. Grandma, I think she had 6 bodies. So you can't tell anymore. So every single client that you have, you must follow the rules. And again, I'm so happy that the buyer agency agreement is on the scene, because you are forced now to meet and to vet those clients right up front. Excuse me. This book ought to be required reading. If you can see on my bookshelf, I have about 3 copies of that very book. That book talks about the fear signals, something that every single one of us are born with that will keep us safe. Can anyone tell me what that is? What tool, what are we born with that every animal in nature has that could keep us safe if we pay attention to it? You could unmute or you can put it in chat.
I think it's fight or flight.
Exactly. I heard, what did I hear? Flight or flight? Did I hear spidey sense? What did I hear? Both.
I said fight or flight.
Thank you, Kimberly. Fight or flight, instinct, intuition. Carl Porter calls it spidey sense. All of those, sixth sense, all of those are something every animal is born with. Every animal in nature, including humans. I had someone say we're not animals, but you know where I'm going with this, right? Every animal in nature is born with that instinct, that voice that tells you something is wrong. You get a funny feeling in your stomach, the hairs are standing up in your arms, your heart's beating fast, and then you know something is wrong. You can't put your finger on it, but your body is warning you. Every animal in nature has this. Humans are the only ones who ignore it. We ignore it for a number of reasons. There's a story of 2 real estate agents here in the Kansas City area. They've been in business. Both of them had been agents for over 20 years. One of them was excited because she was going to show a Dr. Houses that afternoon in Mission Hills. And if you look it up, Mission Hills is one of the richest neighborhood areas, subdivisions of Kansas City. That's where like the Kansas City Royals players, the Chiefs players, that's where the rich folk live, okay? So she was excited because she was going to show Dr. Houses in in that area. She told the agent on board duty, and I'm probably dating myself, she said, let me know when my client gets here. So the agent at the front desk said, hey, a guy just came in, he's got a lab coat on, he's here. She said, how well do you know him? The agent who was going to be showing says, I don't know him at all, but this is my first time meeting him, and I can't wait to get out and show him. She said, the agent on board duty, she said, can you please check him out first? I have got a bad feeling. And she said, what are you talking about? She said, I can't put my finger on it. She said, something is wrong. Can you please postpone the showing until you've had time to vet him and check him out? And the other agent said, you're so silly. So she went to go show the doctor houses that afternoon. And then she got back to the office later that evening, and she got a phone call from the doctor. And the doctor's talking to her, and she's saying, wait a minute, what you're saying doesn't make sense. You're talking as if we've never met. We spent the afternoon together showing houses. He's saying, wait, what you're saying doesn't make sense. We've met? And she said, yeah, you came to my office. We looked at houses you had on your lab coat with your name tag. We spent the whole afternoon together. He said, 2 weeks ago, someone broke into my office and stole my lab coat. It was not me. So at that point, she realized that she was working with someone she had no clue who he was. And she went to the other agent. She said, what did you see that I missed? And the other agent said, something wasn't right. I couldn't tell right on the spot. She said, but after you left, I had time to think about it. He had on his lab coat. How many of you have ever seen a doctor in a grocery store with their lab coat on? Anyone? Doesn't happen. What about in the grocery store with the lab coat on? Pumping gas. It does not happen. So she said, in the moment, I couldn't tell, but my gut told me something was wrong. Do you think the other agent might have had a feeling something was wrong too? But guess what clouded her gut, her intuition? The promise of a commission. So bottom line is, if you hear nothing else today, please hear this. You must listen to your gut, listen to your body. It's hardly ever wrong. Our intuition, our instinct has one agenda, one job only, and that is to warn you when danger is present. I even had an agent approach me, I want to say within the last month, and she said, I had that same situation. I had a client that I met, and she said something was off. My body told me that there was something wrong. She said, but I showed him everything was fine. So I guess, I thought my intuition was wrong. She read the news the next week. She learned that the exact same person, that buyer, killed another real estate agent. Her gut was not wrong. So I say, take those warnings seriously. Look for clues, what may be going on, but don't question it. Get out of the situation, make an excuse, make up a story, and then do your proper vetting. We're going to talk about ways to vet, and then meet them if all checks out. So let's talk about creating a safety plan. You have to work every day, and you don't have time to do a lot of extras in order to stay safe. So I'm saying, bake it into your business. It must be built into your business. Before we launch this part of it, does anyone have any questions or any feedback so far on anything that I've talked about, or anything to add? I want to make sure that I don't leave anyone out. Jamie, any comments that I need to know or address?
No, there isn't.
Say it again.
No, there's nothing in the chat.
Okay, thank you. And again, thank you to Jamie. I don't know if Jamie realized
Yeah.
today that she was going to be helping me, but I do appreciate you being here helping me. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay,
I
so
just
let's
have a
talk about creating
Oh, I hear
sure,
someone.
Gina.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment. So, I recently got a Byrna, which is BYRNA, and it is a non-lethal projectile gun, right?
Right,
It's a
right.
gun, but
Mhm.
you can go to the range and practice and figure out how to use it, but it's non-lethal. So if in the event it was used on you, no one's going to die either way, but it's a sense of security, and it does work, and you don't have to be background checked. There's no waiting period. The one I got was $400, but you just go on their website, and you can just see if that's something that you might want to do in lieu of an actual firearm.
And thank you for bringing that up. And that is, I want to say that's pepper spray. Am I right or wrong?
It's not pepper spray, but you can also bear spray is another alternative. That's going to be it's going to have a, the effect of stopping someone in their tracks. But the Burna is actually projectiles that feels like a rock's hitting you, I guess. But then there's two capsules, which is what you actually want to have it loaded with, which is it releases a chemical.
Mhm.
So you can either use just the pellets as a scare tactic, or you can actually discharge an agent that's going to, make sure that that person is not going to be running away. So you're basically
Right.
paralyzing them in the moment without lethally, harming them.
Gina, can you put
Right.
that in the chat, how to spell that?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And then, and thank you for sharing that. And it does use some form of pepper pellets. And
Yes.
like you said, it is shaped like a gun, so people can practice with it. So one thing that I encourage people to do is if you're going to use a tool like Byrna, and that's BYRNA, is to make
Yeah.
sure you train with it. And you pointed that out again, making sure you practice and train with it. The thing that you have to be concerned or careful about is if you draw what appears to be a gun on someone and they believe that it is a gun, they
Yeah.
can also draw a gun and it could be a real gun and they're meeting force with supposed force. So that is something that I want everyone to be concerned about. And then you
Yeah.
also mentioned bear spray. Let's talk a little bit about it. And I'm glad you brought it up now. So that way, if we run out of time at the end, we typically talk about this, but I'm glad you brought it up now. I've heard people say use bear spray instead of pepper spray. Have you all heard about using wasp spray instead of pepper spray? Along the same lines. And for those, I say that's a hard no. One thing that I did when I started my business is I took a class at the police academy here in Kansas City, and it was the pepper spray class. Part of being a law enforcement officer is that you had to basically you have to carry pepper spray. So you have to be sprayed with pepper spray. You need to know how it works. So I call myself like a pepper spray expert. I know probably more about pepper spray than the average bear. But the bottom line is that, like you're saying, nothing is 100%. So many people are afraid to use a gun. And those people, like I said, will get the gun taken and used against them. But a tool like Burner, and like you said, Burner, if you get it taken away from you, then if they use it on you, you're going to survive. The person that you are going to shoot with it will survive. But the key is it gives you time to get out of a dangerous situation. To address the bear spray conversation, people want to use bear spray because it's in a bigger canister and it goes farther. People recommend using wasp spray. Same thing, it can go up to 20 feet and you don't need pepper spray. But if you read the label of a wasp spray canister, it's going to tell you that it is a federal crime to use it for anything other than its intended purpose. And then people say, well, I don't care. I'm going to use whatever it takes to save my life. The problem with that is we don't know if wasp spray is going to stop a human being. We know what it does to wasp. It attacks their central nervous system, but will it kill or stop a human being? We don't know. For that reason, you do not see police officers carrying wasp spray, right? So use the product for its intended purpose. Wasp spray works on wasp. Bear spray, let's save those for bears. And pepper spray, you use those accordingly. And Byrna, that's one of the things that it can go farther. So definitely do your homework. And thank you, Gina, for bringing that up. Do your homework. Find out whatever weapon is comfortable for you and that you will actually use. That's what they say. The best weapon is the one you will actually use. And later on, I'm going to talk about a product that I happened upon. The company reached out to me. They said we have a product similar to pepper spray, but it doesn't cost you to have to evacuate the room. It's like, what are you talking about? You can spray them. It'll stop them in their tracks, their eyes water, cough, same thing as pepper spray, but everyone around, you're not going to get impacted. So that was something I'm still doing some investigation on it, and I am excited about it. So I'm actually meeting with them later on today. So let's talk a little, and thank you, Gina, for bringing up that conversation, important conversation. Weapons, so important. Let's talk a little bit about, okay, thanks. Let's talk a little bit about those first meetings. During COVID, everything kind of changed. Now, what I've learned is that some states did not ever close. Other states, I'm here in Kansas City, Missouri, everything was closed. I mentioned my twin sister, she's an agent. No one was going anywhere. You're not showing anyone anything. During that time, all of us had to learn how to use Zoom or how to do virtual meetings in order to stay in business. My mom, 80, don't tell her I told you my age. She was doing virtual meetings. So almost everyone knows how to do a virtual meeting by now, whether it's FaceTime or the Zooms, whatever, everyone was doing them. So that took away an excuse for people to not meet in person for that first meeting. So having that first meeting nowadays, again, everything's different now because you have to get an agreement signed. If you want to have just the first meeting with a seller or buyer before that meeting, virtual is the way to do it, if possible. And right now we're back to real life, of course, and I still can't believe we went through that, but we survived. Real life meetings. If you don't have office space, and a lot of agents are virtual, then you have no office to meet into. I will guarantee you, if you have any industry partners in your association, and I'm an industry partner here in Kansas City, if you have an industry partner with an office, with a conference room, I guarantee you they will allow you to use that conference room for that first meeting. This is the meeting where you're having the buyer safety consultation and getting that agreement signed. You have a place to meet in public. Now, people always talk about meet in a coffee shop. Let me tell you my concerns with that. Meeting in a busy place like that might feel safe, but it defeats the purpose of the first meeting. The first meeting is designed to increase witness potential. You want the maybe bad guy perpetrator to know that if something happens to me, there is someone who can identify you to law enforcement officials if need be. So if you meet, look at that first picture. You meet in a crowded coffee shop like that, no one knows who you are. It defeats the purpose, right? However, if you meet in a coffee shop where they know you, totally different ballgame. You walk in, hey, Mary, hey, Sue. Then the person you're with, they know, okay, someone knows them. They're going to be able to identify me, makes them think twice, right? So think about that first meeting being somewhere with witnesses. If it's virtual, you can say, look, before we meet, let's have a conversation. Let me find out what you're looking for so that I can see if I can help you. And this is when you let them know, we do this virtually because there's a record of who I meet with. That's part of our safety protocol. What you're doing is you're telling that maybe would-be buyer perpetrator that we have safety protocols in place. I'm concerned about my safety, and then there will be an image of you if something happens. So always lead with safety. Again, bake it in as part of your practices and procedures. Now let's talk a little bit about that dress code. I am not here to tell you to dress professionally. Don't need to do it. Real estate agents, some of the best dressed people that I get to talk to. I am here to tell you to dress safely. That means save that fancy jewelry for special occasions. I had an agent say, I'm a retired kindergarten teacher. Now I've got my real estate license. She said, I am excited. Now I get to wear my jewelry that I could not wear in the classroom. And I had to say, nope, you cannot do that. There's already a bullseye on the real estate community. Think about your job description. Meeting complete strangers at empty houses, hosting empty houses alone, but not after today, right? And then also seller listing appointments alone. So they already know that if you want to pick a target that can easily be isolated, call a real estate agent. In the olden days, before the buyer agreement, you were that agent. And Carl Carter, he called it, I heard him call it a Pop-Tart agent, an agent who gets a phone call and they would show up. That's over. That's done, right? That's done as far as buyers are concerned. As far as sellers are concerned, we're going to change that today as well. So I told her no more, because people are actually looking for real estate agents who are vulnerable. So you will not be wearing your jewelry when you're working. Save it for special occasions. And ladies, high heel shoes, they look great on, but they're hard to run in, right? Excuse me. Of course, I don't sneeze all weekend, but here we are. Excuse me. And then, of course, I have a program this afternoon for California. So let's see if I can do something between now and then to solve the problem. But high heel shoes, they look good on, but they're hard to run in. It's sad to even have to talk about running when we're talking about business, but that's your reality. Imagine being in a property and you're uncomfortable and you need to get away. Hard to do in high heel shoes. You're in your cars an awful lot. Imagine being stuck on the side of the road, maybe no gas, maybe no cell signal, and you have to walk for help. hard to do in high heel shoes. I had an agent, I was in Asheville. That would be Tennessee. In Tennessee, I said, be careful with the high heel shoes. She literally took off her stiletto. She held it up. She said, this is a weapon. I can do damage with this. Everybody can't. So for those of you who may not have that mindset, be careful when you're working. What you're wearing, you must pay attention to that. I used to ask the question, who would pick up a hitchhiker? And people would say, I used to do it back in the old days. They picked up hitchhikers, right? And then the question becomes, who would pick up a hitchhiker nowadays? Everyone's looking at me like, are you crazy? No way, no how. Then I would ask the question, who here has ever gotten a sign call and met that complete stranger at an empty house? Everyone. What's the difference between that, having a stranger in your car, and meeting a stranger in an empty property? What is the safety difference? Literally none. It's equally dangerous. So in this day and age, you may have to have a client in the car with you. So the question is, how do you make that okay? We've already talked about the buyer agency agreement. That is when you meet them in person, talk to them about how to work the process in a safe manner. And then you're also getting them to sign the buyer agency agreement. You are increasing witness potential. They've met people in your office or wherever you are, so they know who you are. And you've also hopefully done a background check. Does your association work with Forewarn or Tether RE? Which one, Jamie? Both?
Forewarned.
Okay. Forewarn is amazing. They've been around for a while. And as a matter of fact, before this is over with, I'm actually doing a safety program. I'm interviewing Forewarn or presenting with them tomorrow on a virtual program. And I want to make sure you all get an opportunity to come, because what I found with Forewarn, and I've interviewed them for several articles, is that they never really get an opportunity to talk about how do show and tell. Here's what it can do, here's what it won't do. So they're going to do that tomorrow, 12 o'clock Central Time, virtually. I'm going to make sure you get a link to share if anyone wants to attend, but you need to do a background check. Tether RE is a new one on the scene. Forewarn, both of them allow you to enter an email address, and then you will get back any criminal convictions. The key word there is conviction. Criminals commit crimes, I want to say, about 13 times before they're caught and maybe even convicted. So keep in mind that just a clear record, no convictions, does not necessarily mean that they're not a criminal. So you still must do your due diligence. And I even had a real estate agent who said, I got a 4-1 report on someone, and when I saw that there were like 25 convictions, I'm thinking, no way, no how. And then they looked at it and they realized that those were traffic convictions. So they were safe to show real estate to, but just not riding the car with, right? So do your homework, do your due diligence, know exactly who you are working with. And then at that point, if you're comfortable putting them in the car with you, that is fine. My sister works with some people who are transferred, and they are transferred, what's the word, into Kansas City. So they don't have cars, they're flying in. So she's picking them up at the hotel or airport. They're in her car. So she has definitely vetted them very well first. Okay, agent information for a broker. A lot of times when you join a brokerage, the broker has all of your information, but they just may not have your emergency contact updated. So that is something that needs to happen on a regular basis. If something were to happen to you, does that broker have your updated emergency contact? Do they know if you have any medical situations, diabetes or heart problems, any allergies? So if something's wrong, they at least know. Make sure you complete the agent information form on a regular basis. I'd say brokerages, you need to ask maybe every 6 months or so. So if you can go to the NAR website, you can find those forms there, the agent information form for brokers, or you can even create one simply and easily. That's the emergency contact form. That's something most people don't do. I'm looking at the clock. We have about 20 minutes. My time is flying. So let us talk a little bit about making sure someone knows where you are at all times. This is a hard one because some people think I'm a real estate agent. I'm an independent contractor because I can come and go as I please. I don't have to answer to anyone. No, you don't. But in this business, the safety part of it is making sure someone knows your location at all times. If you've ever lost your phone, you know that you can go to another device and say, find my device, and it will tell you exactly where your phone is located. By the same token, it can also tell where you are located. One time I lost my phone. First time and only time in my life I've ever lost my phone. I was able to get to a tablet and I was like, find my device. And what I saw, because I use Google Maps. And you all know by now there's no such thing as privacy, right? And you know that Google knows everything, right? So what I found was a roadmap to everywhere I had been that day. Not only a timeline, Tracey, you drove here, you arrived at this place at this time, it took you this long to get here, but an actual map of everywhere that I had been. In my case, it appears that my phone died, or in that case, it had a battery that was removable. They removed my battery, so I never got my phone back. But what I did next is that I went and I said, hey, erase my device. So I was able to remotely erase my device since I realized that I wasn't getting my phone back. So make sure this is something, spend some time in the security settings of your phone to make sure you're actually able to do this. Okay, Google Maps. Most of us use Google Maps. Even if you know where you're going, I use it to track my time. What time am I going to arrive at a certain place? Even though I've been there before, I want to be able to gauge my time. So we're all using Google Maps. Let's use the safety feature in Google Maps where you can share your location. So this is where you get to say, this is where I'm going. And by the way, let's share the trip progress with someone. There's Stacy again. So I can say, share my location with Stacy for the next 3 hours. And that could be the time that you're showing a client. So someone can look you up in 3 hours and they know exactly where you're going to be. That you're sharing your location. I have an agent who said, I leave it on 24/7, 365 days of the year. I need my husband and my son to be able to find me, and I don't want to have to think about it. So her location is always enabled. And then I had an agent, he said, I don't want my wife knowing where I am all the time. He said, I could be playing golf and she thinks I'm working. So he only turns it on when he's working. So you control that. But the point is, someone needs to know where you are at all times. Another thing you need to keep in mind is Google Calendar. I know Microsoft has a shared calendar as well. So the point is to make sure that someone can find you. Okay, we talked about using it to grow your business. I want you to look at these names on the screen. Just look in every single box. Look at the names. And then I'm going to turn the page and I want you to look at these names as well. And I want you to tell me if you noticed anything about the names on the screen. Anyone notice anything? Any patterns, anything stand out for you? They're all male agents, including the one that I talked about today that happened this summer. I wrote an article back in 2017 talking about the 4 ways male agents put themselves in danger, and it was the most read article of the entire year on the entire platform. So that's why I always recognize agents, male agents who show up, and that's why I thanked was it Michael earlier? So thank you for paying attention. I wrote an article for RAS Media about it because it's a serious crime. Let us talk a little bit here about real estate agents and pictures. This is an industry where your picture leads the way. My twin sister put our picture on the little mailer she would do with the Chiefs football schedule, with the Royals baseball schedule. And she put the pictures on everything. Every agents have their pictures on signs, on their business cards. And I asked the question, Stacy, how does having your picture on your business card help you make more money, get more listings? Why do you need to do it? And she said, I am my business. So that was branding way back then. You want to be recognized. You want people to know who you are. If you go that route, you must use discretion, the type of pictures that you use. There used to be a group on Google Meet, on Google Plus, whatever, called Hot Real Estate Agents. I can't show you all the pictures because I would get in trouble and probably banned forever. This is a billboard. And this agent said, hey, I use a picture. My website views went up from 2,000 to 20,000 in her bikini. It worked for her. Male agents do it too. And then one agent even got kind of sort of in trouble because he said, if female agents can lead with their sex appeal, why can't we? And then I hear questions saying, if you're a couple and you have a so-called sexy real estate agent, or are you going to be comfortable if your spouse has to go look at a property and you can't be there? So there's another thought process involved there. But secondly, and my message is, and I will not hear anyone say, well, if you dress a certain way, you deserve what you get. Absolutely not. We will never blame the victims. There's no excuse for that kind of thinking. But what I'm saying is people treat you the way you present yourself. So keep in mind a professional appearance when working. One of these days, I'm going to run into these agents. I was in Vegas, and one of the agents said, we need to use our picture. We use it all the time. It's like, let me see your business card. And the picture on the top left, the full body silhouette, that was on the business card. This was the website. I don't know if it still is to this day. And it says, for information, call our hotline. What kind of calls do you think their angels are getting on that hotline? So be careful the image that you put out there. Open house safety, not going to spend too much time on it because I know that you all are alert and aware of how to keep your open houses safe, but I'm just going to remind you, the security walkthrough, when you're on the listing presentation, you've already told them to get their valuables out of sight. That includes mail, the little stacks of mail with medical bills and financial documents. You've already told them that. You've told them to get medicine out of medicine cabinets, jewelry out of jewelry boxes. If you're holding someone else's house open, have the conversation in the beginning so that you don't have to worry about being accused of letting someone steal something. Engage the neighbors, invite them to come over to the open house. That creates traffic, and it's also good for business development. If they want to sell their house, they know you know the neighborhood. Keep your valuables out of sight. That means in your car, your laptop, if you're not on it, your phone, your purse, your briefcase, anything, keep it in the car until you need it. Make sure that all the windows and doors are locked up when you left, and don't park in the driveway where you can get blocked in. Open houses can be tricky because you don't want to ever get accused of discrimination. So you must treat everyone the exact same. So some open houses, people say, well, do you follow them around? You all know that's not the nature of how an open house works. So you need to make sure the sellers have put anything away of value so that you don't have to worry about them taking anything, and treat everyone the same. I always advise putting a smile, you're on camera sign right outside the door. So that way when they approach, and who knows, the sellers may have cameras in the house. So you put a sign on the front door. We act differently when we see a sign, right? So put a sign out and let them know you're on camera, whether there is a camera or not. So people act differently. Just you get the little removable 3M tape, put it throughout the house. I had an agent say, oh, those signs are horrible. We won't do it. So I created signs. And this is from my Etsy store. I created signs that would be a little more attractive, that agents were more inclined to use them. I'll make sure you have a link at the end if you are interested. Agents, we have to talk a little bit about proper ways to show. That means when you're walking through the house, you always allow the client to lead. Nothing comes between you and the escape route, which could be that front door, back door, the door you came in. Never allow anyone to block your escape route. For the seller, you need to let them know if someone knocks on the door, even with a name badge on, a business card, and they say, I'm an agent and I'm here to show your house, you must have the conversation with them that they're not to let anyone in, because it could be a criminal. The one thing you advise them to do is to advise that person, hey, I'm going to close, lock the door and leave, access the property through the lockbox. If they're legitimate agents, that's what they're going to do, and the showing will proceed. I'm going to talk to you all a little bit about Googling yourself on a regular basis. You need to know what's out there. By the same token, if you're a little lazy, set up a Google alert. And so that means just Google alert. Put your name in, your name and your company, your name, the word real estate agent in parentheses, in quotes, out of quotes, anything that shows up on the internet, you want to be alerted to what's out there. So take the time to set up a Google alert. We talk about Craigslist fraud. Google Alert can help solve that problem. A Google Alert, you put all of your listings in a Google Alert. If something is published about that address, you're going to get a message and a link to whatever it is. And it's not foolproof, but it's at least a step. And that's a conversation you're having with the sellers. I've set up a Google Alert. That way, if someone tries to post your property on Facebook Marketplace or wherever on Craigslist, I'm going to know, and I will be able to protect you. That's another way you are leading with safety. So protect sellers and let them know that you've set up a Google alert. I'm going to see if there are any questions now. We have about 15 minutes left, and I want to make sure I get questions answered, because the next 15 minutes, I'm going to try to zip through quickly. Any questions out there, Jamie?
Feel free to unmute and ask Tracey any questions that you have.
On anything that we've talked about, just unmute and jump in here because I really must touch upon deep fakes and the cybersecurity part of real estate. I can't talk about safety without talking about that. So if I don't see any questions, I'm going to zoom through. Question. Can anyone tell me the name of their first car? Anyone jump in? This is an easy one, guys.
I had a
What about your
Cutlass
favorite car?
Sierra Oldsmobile.
Okay, Cutlass Sierra. Thank you, Kimberly. Okay, and then I would ask favorite book, or I would ask your high school mascot. People enthusiastically answer, and that is what we are trained to do. We are social creatures. But guess what? If you answer those questions, you were socially engineered. And that's how cyber criminals trick us into sharing information we typically would not share. Think about the questions that I just showed you. Now, think about what happens if you lose your password on an account. It could be a social media account, it could be a bank account. You get a security hint, and the security hint will be challenge questions, right? Think about what those questions are. First car, favorite teacher, mascot, mother's maiden name, street you grew up on, right? So you see where I'm going with this. Criminals use the opportunity to get you to share information that will allow them to hack into your account or steal your identity. So in the real estate world, they are using this tool. And again, today's training is the safe practices, but I'm touching upon this because this is something you need to be alert and aware. And this is a whole other training, but you must understand. There was a big MLS breach a few years ago. I saw the guy who worked for the company. I saw him at a trade show in California, and I said, "What would you tell people based on what you've learned about your breach?" He said, "Tell the real estate industry to tighten up your cybersecurity protocols. That means your passwords, multi-factor authentication, your antivirus, tighten up. Because one, if you don't invest in the training up front, and most people think, it'll never happen to us, not going to do it, you're going to invest at the end." He said you're going, after you have a breach, and that goes for teams, agents, brokerages. If you have a breach, you're going to have to pay to get back on track. And secondly, reputational damage. Who wants to do business with the real estate agent or brokerage that had a breach and their client information was out there? So cybersecurity training up front is the key. I talked about wire fraud. You have to understand that wire fraud is an not if, but a when business. Someone you work with, one of your clients, is going to be the victim of a wire fraud, has already been, or someone you know or work closely with. But these are preventable crimes. So that's why I'm compelled to talk about it. It's a growing business, but it's preventable. If any of you all are using any AI tools like ChatGPT, Gemini, you understand that there's no such thing as privacy. The information you enter is public information. You cannot write a client marketing report with their names, their addresses, the value of their house, et cetera, and upload it to the tools, because now you've told everyone your client's proprietary private information. I had an agent who said, "I had no idea, and I've been uploading like crazy." Stop. Redact the names, get the report, get whatever you want the tool to do for you, but just add the name in later. Those of you who are having fun with it, you put your face on another body, you put your, you create videos and images. Whenever you upload your picture to the tools, keep in mind, you don't know how they're going to use your photo. Take the time to look at their policies. If they delete it, if you can request that it be deleted, but everyone's having fun. And if you look at my social media, you will see me riding a horse, which is something that's never happened in real life. You will see me turning a cartwheel again. Not happening. But we love the tools. We have fun with them, but understand how your image and information is being used. I remember the question, will technology replace real estate agents? A better question is, will AI replace real estate agents? I was in Virginia and I had an agent say, until AI can look a customer in the eye, smile at them, and shake their hand, she said, "I am not worried about it replacing me." Meet a mecha. A mecha is a humanoid. I saw a mecha interviewed, and I saw a mecha look at the reporter, shake his hand, and smile at him. be careful assuming that it won't replace you. A real estate company in Las Vegas is banking on it. There are others now trying to replace agents with AI. I am saying be the agent who uses the tools to enhance who you are, your output and your creativity and your marketing, so that you cannot be replaced. And in my full class, I get an opportunity to talk a little bit more about that. But today is just a warning, high level awareness. You can no longer believe what you see, what you hear, or what you read. There are great ways to use the tool. I use them every day. I cannot imagine life without ChatGPT, Gemini, all of the tools. I can't imagine it, but use them in the proper way. And most importantly, use them safely. Anything that can be used for good can be used for bad. And that's the same thing here. If you're using it to produce content, keep in mind that the tools hallucinate. Another word for hallucinate is lie. It makes up stuff. This is a question someone asked ChatGPT. Look at the answer. It looks sincere. It looks real. They doubled down. There's historical information. What if I told you everything here is a lie? None of it happened. None of it is true. You must fact check everything. So even if you're writing something, fact check, make sure it is real. Excuse me. Excuse me. Yes. Okay. Excuse me. Create business building content. You all get a market update from your association, right? When I do my AI training, I have to do the good as well as the dangers because I don't want to be Miss Doom and Gloom. Take your market report, upload it into one of the tools and say, summarize this. If you look at that, you will notice, you will look at everything in the original and the output, make sure it matches, make sure it is accurate. You have to fact check everything, right? I said, I want you to write an email. I want you to write a blog post. I want you to give me a social media post based on that graph. So here is the post right here, the blog post. It's saying sellers, obviously it's a hot market. Buyers, you're going to have to wait a while and wait for prices to come down. It takes that information and it creates content. So you can see it's targeted directly to them. I'm the one who says educate FSBOs for sell by owners, and you'll see it uses that same information and it educates the for sell by owner. Here is the social media post, and it also gives you the hashtags. So this is the safe way to use it to create content. And here's an email. It wrote a compelling email, but again, you must remember to fact check everything. Make sure the information is fine. You can even create an image. When we talk a little bit about cybersecurity, I've got, I think, 8 minutes left, about 6 minutes left. Talk about cybersecurity. You must keep in mind that you have to pause, stop, and think before you do anything. You all are familiar with the grandparent scam. Back in the olden days, people would call, hey, grandma, grandpa, I'm in jail, I'm in the hospital. Could you please send me money? And the grandparent, that voice may or may not be my grandchild, but I'm not taking a chance. I'm sending the money. How many retirement plans have been wiped out because grandparents believed it? In the real world, that's my deepfake grandma. And ethically, you disclose when you're using AI. I created her, but you must also understand how it's impacting the real estate world. And everyone knows the broker gift card scam. You would get a text from your broker, hey, send me some gift cards. I need you to do it. Don't ask questions, just send them. I'll explain it later. Or, hey, call me with the numbers on the gift cards. Or even brokers calling saying, pay an invoice, pay a bill. Cyber criminals are using deepfake voice impersonations to make those phone calls now. It takes 3 seconds of your voice in order to duplicate it. So they're calling and saying, give me this information, give me that. You can't tell if it's real or not, but if you are aware, now you know that that's a possibility. So any incoming calls asking for information, you must say, I need the code word or I cannot talk to you. This is a conversation you must have with your buyers and consumers as well. If you get a call and it's me asking for information that doesn't make sense, stop. Call my actual number, and you have my number on this sheet here. Call me first. So that's a big deal. In the world, the real estate world, it finally happened, and this was a Florida story. You guys probably are aware of it. A buyer was going to buy a lot, and his dad was a broker, and the seller wouldn't meet in person, had hearing issues, wouldn't talk on the phone, and so the title company is saying something is weird here. I call her my shero. She's saying something is weird here. I need to meet, and they would not meet. The seller would not meet, and she said something's wrong. And then they reached out and said, let's go ahead and do a Zoom. On the bottom right would be the seller. And then the title company saying something's wrong with the picture, it's a little jerky. And they said, oh, we have bad reception. And her gut was saying something's wrong. She said, I need you to raise your hand. The seller could not raise their hand. It was a deep fake. They took a missing person's ID and created a deep fake. That title person saved that buyer not only the $53,000 he was going to wire, but the $200,000 or $300,000 he was going to use to build. It should not be only title companies who are on the front line. I want you all to be on the front line. So after today, and then again, I can typically go into greater detail, but after today, you know enough to question everything. If they won't come to the phone, if they're asking for information, if it's too good to be true, it's a scam. If there's a sense of urgency, they're asking for something that doesn't make sense, it is a scam. I'm going to zip through here. Got about 5 minutes or 3 minutes. I'm going to talk to you about emails. This is a conversation you're having with your buyers, and you're telling them you will get an email more than likely saying it's time to change wire instructions. Do not do it. It could be a cyber criminal. I asked Copilot to write a voice change email, a wire change email. Copilot said, nope, I can't help you with that. There are guardrails built in to keep it from scamming people. However, ChatGPT said, let's go. So look at the letter that ChatGPT wrote. It's convincing. If you have not had the conversation with your buyer, I guarantee you, if they look at that, they read that, they see the urgency of it, they're likely to click and change wire instructions. You must have the conversation with them. If you're writing marketing plans, again, no great detail, no addresses, no names, because you're putting it out there to the public. Deepfakes are real. I saw this video on YouTube of Queen Elizabeth talking, then she got up and started dancing. What? And then I realized it was a deep fake. This woman put Queen Elizabeth's face on her body, and she made her do things she never did. That is something you all are going to have to be alert and aware of. If you look at this picture here, I always ask the question, which is a deep fake? People will give me some numbers. Then I have to say, none of these people exist. These are all deep fake images. You can see how good they are, and they're getting even better. So beware. This property has a slight foundation issue. Canva, and most of you use Canva, has a magic erase tool. You can erase anything in a picture. You need to be aware of that in the real estate world and make sure that there are no scams. I saw this real estate image online, and everyone was saying, why would you use that horrible picture? Look how cluttered it is. I took the picture over to Canva and I erased the stuff on the top. The question is, did I do anything wrong? Would you do anything wrong by doing that as a real estate agent? No. If I erase the ceiling fan, the microwave, or the faucet, then you're doing something wrong. So know how to use the tools properly. This is a deepfake image that I created. It looks like a real picture. It's hard to tell what's real and what's not real. Looking at the hands and fingers is a clue. Sometimes too many fingers, sometimes none, sometimes not enough. So that's a clue now. At some point, they're going to get it right. Understand, if you're writing property descriptions, it could get you in trouble if you're copying and pasting. This one says you and your family. Fair housing violation, right? This one says take a walk along the beach. That's another problem. Fact check everything. This is an image, my deepfake image of a house. How do I know it's a deepfake? Because I put it in Google Lens, the AI tool, the reverse image search. It doesn't see anything. And then I put a real house, that's here in Kansas City, and then it found it. At some point, almost all houses have been on the market. Google Lens is your friend. It's a tool that everyone needs to use. I am going to wrap here with some basic cybersecurity protocols that you all need to take. You must have antivirus on your phone, your laptop, and your tablet, all devices. An IT guy told me this is probably, the free version is probably one of the best ones. I haven't had a virus since. So investigate, do your homework. Avast is a great one. You must have cybersecurity insurance. I know you have E&O insurance. Ask your agent about cybersecurity. If there's ever a breach, you're going to more than likely face litigation. Have a cybersecurity insurance policy in place to protect you. You've heard of ransomware, someone taking over your device, and then they're holding your information, your client information ransom, and saying, if you don't pay us, you don't get your information back. Law enforcement says, do not pay. If you don't pay, you're out of business, right? Back up your information. Try a cloud storage tool like Carbonite. Again, do your homework. Find the one that's best for you. That way, you still have access to your information and you're in business. Passwords are a big deal. That's how most criminals get into your accounts. So in that situation, passwords are a headache, right? In that situation, passphrases. That's two or more unrelated words. It could be a sentence. It could be something like purple pigs fly in the summer. something that no one would ever guess, or even better, biometric. Google has this, and I'm sure Microsoft others do. It's your thumbprint or your face print. That is AI. That is biometric identification. My twin sister cannot open my devices. Her thumbprint, her face will not. So you know a criminal cannot either. So pause, stop, and think. Update your security when you get the reminder. Time to update. Don't say remind me later, because that is a fix to any security issue that the provider has recognized. Someone can access your data. Let us get a patch out there and tell our clients to update it. Update every time you see it, or schedule automatic updates in the wee hours of the morning so that you're not on your device and it will not slow you down. Okay, so this is just confirmation. We've talked about this. Okay, so I'm going to give you my contact information so that you can request the forms that I talked about. This is the podcast that I am doing now. This is where the stories are we talked about, including that Florida real estate agent. The Real Estate Safety University is something new and different that I am doing, and I am teaching you how to get safety training on a budget basis, basically, so that you can offer that to your agents. And then for brokerages, you can offer to your agents and do it on a budget basis. Here is the book that I am giving to you, and I am trying to make sure you get the link. Here is the seller checklist. When you walk in the front door, that you're saying, here is the checklist to make sure your house is safe while it's on the market. And then I'm giving that to you as a download. There's the article in Realtor magazine, the FISBO. I think I talked about this, a FISBO safety tip sheet, 15 tips, staple your business card to it. When you see a FISBO, do not talk to them about selling their house and you have a buyer. Use it to let them know, here's what you need to do to be safe. By the time they get to number 15, the business card attached to it's rising to the top of the stack. And typically, they'll say, this is too dangerous. What am I trying to do? And you will more than likely get a call. There's an article there. And let me give you your homework assignment. Everyone take a picture of the screen, please. And understand that if you enter your phone number and your email address, you are going to get a list of all of your accounts that have had data breaches, and your password is on the dark web. You must change those immediately. Share this with your clients. This is information that everybody needs, and most people do not know this. So definitely share this with your client. And we already talked about this non-lethal product, typically pepper spray. We talked about that. Now, this is the one I was talking about, the new spray that doesn't require evacuating a whole room. Again, I'm doing research on that, so watch for information on that. We talked about putting a sign up outside of an open house, having signage. Here is the Facebook page. And then here is my email address. And then keep in mind that I'm trying to see if Jamie has the link to share about the conversation tomorrow. Jamie, if I send that to you really quick, are you able to share that? If anyone wants to log in with the forewarned conversation.
Yes, I can email it to everyone.
Okay, I just sent you a link. So everyone look at my email address here. I'm going to give you a QR code. So if for some reason the QR code doesn't work, email me directly, and you can email me and say, send me that FISBO safety tip sheet, send me the seller security checklist so I can use it on my next listing appointment. And you can ask for that, or even send me the link. I just emailed it to Jamie. It's a big, long link, but that allows you to register a free program tomorrow where I get to talk about safety. If someone missed it, they can look at that. But more importantly, they get to hear directly from Forewarn. Here is the QR code. Please join that Facebook group so that you know exactly what's going on in the world of safety. Request that ebook that ChatGPT and I wrote about cybersecurity, and those handout sheets. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, my goal is, and I'm hopeful that the email came through that you can share that link. My goal is that everyone learned something new today. And I know you're a quiet group, so I don't know if I can even ask the question if you learned anything new, if you're going to be doing something different today. So let me know that. But otherwise, I want to thank you all so much. I need to thank your association for having me here. Quite amazing. What is it? The Safety Month recognition. I do appreciate everyone for attending today. Anything else?
Someone wrote the camera signage. Great idea. Thanks again.
Okay, and there's a link to that on the QR code, you'll see the safety signs. There's a link right there. And those are downloadable. You can print as many as you need. Share. Okay. If there's nothing else on it, thank you guys so very much for attending. Looks like there are 2 more comments here. I don't want to miss anything.
They just said
Okay,
thanks so much.
Okay, thanks everyone. And Jamie, were you able to get that link to post in case anyone's interested in attending tomorrow?
The link that you emailed me,
Uh-huh.
yeah, I will email that to them shortly.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, well, everyone, thank you all so much. Sorry for the occasional sneezes, but I hope you all learned and can apply. Any success stories, let me know.
Thank you, Tracy.
Okay, thanks everybody. Everybody be safe. In October, Cybersecurity Awareness Month, pay attention. Be safe,
Bye.
everyone. Bye-bye. Okay. Sorry, I went a little bit over, Jamie, but
That's okay.
so much.
Have
Okay.
a good day. I
And
hope
Okay.
your sneezing
I
stops for
gotta
you.
go try to figure what can I do to stop it that won't put me to sleep so I've got 2 hours to work California this afternoon. So I'll figure something out.
Okay.
Thanks for helping with the
You're
chat and
welcome.
everything.
All right.
Bye, Jamie.
Bye-bye. Bye.